Hey everyone, it's Jason and this is your cruise news update. And we have a passenger that's claiming they were scammed out of $14,000 on their cruise. Are tariffs going to affect the cruise industry? And we have passengers that are demanding compensation as they're accusing Royal Caribbean of a bait and switch. So cruise story number one, and imagine being scammed out of $14,000 on your cruise. So a passenger related a story. He said that him and his wife love art. And they always go to Park West galleries, and he said they always buy something. He says they saw a piece and they absolutely fell in love with it on their cruise. But the problem was, it was a $14,000 piece. He said, didn't matter, they wanted it. So they started negotiating with the gentleman from Park West Galleries on the cruise ship. And after some negotiation, they finally did it where they ended up buying 4 other pieces and getting this main piece, all told for $14,000. Now, what they said is about 3 weeks later, after they got home, all the extra pieces showed up. Everything was perfect. And then the main piece shows up, and it's the wrong piece. It's a piece worth about $4,000 to $5,000, not $14,000. And they said they didn't even like it. So they call and they're emailing Park West and they're hitting a roadblock, not getting a lot of answers. Finally, they basically said, hey, we don't have the piece for you. Probably sold it to someone else. And so they were trying to talk him into keeping it. He goes, we don't like the piece. We're going to send it back. And feels like they strong-armed him a little bit by saying, well, it's going to be a 15% restocking fee. And this is what this passenger is claiming. He says, I have all the receipts, I have everything. And he says, fine, I'm going to do that. Because, quite honestly, to get an attorney, do all this, it's going to cost me more. Fine, 15% restocking fee. And then they start backtracking off of that. And they said, well, we can't do that. So he's asking everyone for advice. Most people told him, reach out to the cruise line. Now, he kept that information a little quiet, says I'm not willing to share that, but everyone said, you need to reach out to the cruise line. They need to make it right. They need to know about this situation. Now, I'm going to tell you this much right now. I'm buying a $14,000 piece. I'm walking off that cruise ship with it. Now, I understand they're a reputable company, many people, that shouldn't have been an issue. But I don't care if I have to check in more luggage and have that paid for, whatever the case may be. That art piece is sitting on my lap as I'm flying home. I don't care. It's going home with me. No way am I buying it and having it shipped to my house. I'm calling up my insurance company, getting it insured, and taking care of it. What would you do if this happened to you? And do you buy art on a cruise? So many people responded back and said, hey, I've never had an issue with them. But I also don't buy a $14,000 piece. I buy, $200, $300 to $500 pieces, and they're just little nice add-ons to my home. I don't really think they're going to be valuable or worth anything. What's your experience? And what would you do if this happened to you? So cruise story number 2, are we going to see a boycott of the cruise industry because of the tariffs? So there's been multiple articles come out this past week stating that Canadians were going to boycott the U.S. cruise industry because of the proposed tariffs on Canada. Now what's interesting is I just got off the Celebrity Ascent and I talked to many Canadians. And the tariffs were really not top of mind, but how weak their dollar was compared to the U.S. dollar. As of this recording, 68 cents to $1 US. Many told me that if that stays the case, they're not going to be able to continue cruising. It's just too expensive for them. Now, this article went on to say if we saw a 10% reduction in Canadians from cruising, it would equal to $2.1 billion loss and 14,000 jobs lost. That's a lot. The article also said that, and stated many Canadians said they were going to start cruising with P&O. Costa, MSC. Well, they may want to do some investigating because Costa and P&O are owned by Carnival Corporation. I'm not sure you can get any more American company than that. And MSC, if they're cruising from the United States, has a huge corporate office in Miami, Florida. So I'm not sure you're really going to affect the U.S. cruise industry by sailing with MSC. What do you think about this? Do these tariffs affect the cruise industry? So before I get to cruise story number 3, I would ask that you please like this video and consider subscribing, as it does help the channel grow. If you could do that for me, I would greatly appreciate it. Thanks so much. So cruise story number 3, and I want your opinion on this. Do you think this is a bait and switch? So imagine being a week out from your cruise. You're super excited, and then you receive an email stating that unfortunately, due to circumstances beyond the cruise line's control, they have to change your itinerary. So this is what's been happening to passengers on Royal Caribbean's Symphony of the Seas, and specifically the Eastern Caribbean, with stops in San Juan, Puerto Rico, and St. Martin. And they're having to change their itineraries to Nassau, Bahamas, and Labadee, or Labadee and Jamaica. Now, sometimes passengers are saying they're not getting this update until they get on the cruise ship. One passenger said due to their job, they could not go on this cruise because they were not allowed to be in Labadee, even if they stayed on the cruise ship. So what the background story is an MSC cruise ship hit the pier in San Juan, Puerto Rico. And that is the pier that the Symphony of the Seas has to dock at. The United States Coast Guard inspected the pier and said, you are absolutely not allowed to dock here until it's fixed. So what is happening is Royal Caribbean continues to sell on their website an Eastern Caribbean cruise that's going to St. Martin and San Juan, Puerto Rico. And then at the last minute, they're changing the itinerary, hoping that eventually that this pier will be fixed. And this is where people are accusing Royal Caribbean of a bait and switch, demanding compensation, saying this is unacceptable. Now, I understand this, and I think a lot of people understand itineraries change due to weather and circumstances beyond anyone's control. But this is a little shady in a gray area for me. And I believe Royal Caribbean does the right thing 99.9% of the time. If you know anything about me, I am a big fan of Royal Caribbean. I think they do the right thing. I enjoy going on their cruises, and it is one of my favorite cruise lines. But I do have to question this, because if you look on their itineraries now, they're selling 2 for the end of March, and there's no indication that that pier is going to be ready. There's people that are supposed to go the next couple weeks to San Juan and St. Martin, and there's no indication whether that pier will be ready or not. Many people are really anxious about this. And when you go through the booking process, there's nothing, no asterisk, hey, there may be an itinerary change on this. I think that should be the minimum they should do. Personally, to me, I think they should stop booking these cruises. I mean, advertising them. I think it's false advertising. Until they get the go-ahead and say, yes, you can do it, and then they can switch it back. Yeah, there may be some people upset about that they're not going to Nassau and Labadee, but I think most people are going to be excited that they're going to San Juan and St. Martin versus those 2 other stops. What do you think about all this? Is this a bait and switch? Should Royal Caribbean drop these itineraries? And should these customers or passengers get compensation? So I appreciate you guys watching. Thank you again so much for the continued support. And until I talk to you soon, happy cruising.